even if we do get them to stop crying, the hurt doesn't go away. It just gets stuffed down. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey everybody, I want to have a conversation about crying and about holding space for our kids to cry. And I want to start off by just saying, I know that we all want what's best for our kids. We want them to be happy and loved and to feel respected and understood. We also want to give them the space that they need to experience life and to make mistakes and to feel what it's like, what the emotions are like when they don't get it right all the time. We want them to experience those emotions in a safe container. And we want to just be the best parents we can. For a lot of us, these goals that we have to be this amazing parent, to be able to provide for our children's needs and to help them become emotionally mature and successful, end up being a lot harder to achieve than we initially thought they would be. And we end up getting triggered when they don't go to bed, when they leave their stuff everywhere, or they refuse to eat what we've cooked for dinner. And we are hit with the reality that loving these kids and nourishing a child can be a complicated endeavor. And the challenges are frequent and possibly feel very difficult to deal with. And it's hard sometimes to find someone, this is surprising to me, but it is our reality, to find someone who can support us and help us. Especially as a mom, sometimes it just feels overwhelming because it feels like the kids are in need of our constant attention, especially when they're young. But even when they're teenagers and they're not demanding it at the same level, they still need us. We can feel that they need our support. It looks differently, but they still need it. When our kids cry or when they get alarmed or when they react emotionally to us in what we might say is a negative way, it's no surprise that we want it to stop because their reaction, their emotions feel like evidence that we've done something wrong. And our logical brain says that if we were a better parent, then the kids wouldn't be crying or having these emotional outbursts and that we would know how to stop it if they did. So let's say it's been a pretty good day. We're balancing the needs of our kids, and we have this long list of to-dos that we've been plowing through, and we feel good about it, and dinner's in the oven, and the house is even fairly picked up. And then one of the kids wants a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but we realize we ran out of the bread without the nuts. They hate the bread with the nuts and the seeds on the top. When we get everything out to make the sandwich, the child notices the problem with the bread and begins to cry and demand the other bread. So we try to explain how we ran out of that yesterday. Remember, we ran out of that when we made your sandwich yesterday. So we try to talk to them, convince them how the other bread, it's not possible that we have it. This new bread is just as good. Maybe we even offer to pick off the nuts. We ask them to use their voice, don't overreact. We point out how we've had such a good day and we've done all these other things with them. And maybe it builds to the point because of their emotional outbursts that we finally scold them to stop making fuss over something so silly. If we could just get them to stop crying, then we'd all feel better. That's what our brain's telling us. However, even if we do get them to stop crying, the hurt doesn't go away. It just gets stuffed down. Now, you may even see this in a child when they visibly swallow as he stops crying. It's almost like he swallowed the emotions into his body. And I want to say that even though they might quiet down, it doesn't mean the upset and emotions are gone. Oftentimes, he looks down at the ground, maybe. His gaze won't come up for a while. He won't engage with us for a while. It pulls back a little bit. Other times, the reaction to stuffing the emotions might look like him getting angry at all the people around him. Even though it starts with something small, for example, in this case, the bread being the wrong kind of bread, which is a personal example from my life, it could look like our child not being able to find the kind of pencil or pen they need or they prefer, or maybe their page gets ripped, or a toy gets broken, or we say they can't play a video game. And this event, this upsetting event, turns into a long period of frustration, upset, or anger. And suddenly, there's disconnection. They don't trust us. They're not calm. Maybe they're resentful. Maybe he's mad at us. Maybe he's mad at his friends. Maybe he's mad at everything. Life gets rocky really fast. So if we switch up the way we respond when our child cries, or I want you to translate this. If you have older kids, it's not that they're going to start bursting into tears like a toddler, but they have that emotional reaction of frustration or anger, or they roll their eyes, or something happens and we can see that they are clearly having an emotional reaction to something. When we can respond to them, when this kind of thing happens, and when we can hold the space for them, we have a chance of getting to the root of things. We might actually be able to help them release that emotion instead of keeping it stuck inside of them, only to fester for the rest of the night or the day or even the week and come out again another day. I was talking to a mom once, and she said her 16-year-old daughter was so upset with her. And she was saying, I don't know what it was. We'd been having such a good day. Everything seemed to be going great. She was just angry at everything. Nothing I could do was right. She was just in a kind of a rage. And then she just allowed her to have the emotions. She couldn't solve it. She wished it could go away. Our human brains want to solve it. We want to soothe them, but she couldn't. And so she allowed her to be there in that space. And eventually her daughter said, Mom, I'm just really mad you didn't let me get those shorts that we were looking at a few days ago when we went shopping. And it's very interesting what is sometimes going on for our children. And we're going to dive into this a little bit more, how sometimes what we think, or maybe the thing that started the reaction in the moment, is just the tip of the iceberg. And there's other things that have been brewing inside of them. So what can we do? Well, we want to stay close and listen. We want to give space for those tears, those emotions to be there. I'm going to use tears a lot, but I want you to be able to translate that or to replace that with just frustration and sad emotions. Because when kids get older, sometimes they aren't letting themselves cry as much. But it really is going from this place of frustration and what I might call is, just to simplify the terms, mad, to allowing them to feel the emotions and take the trip from mad to sad, where they surrender and they realize there's nothing I can do to change this. There's nothing I can do to fix this situation. And I just get to feel the emotions, let them come through and come out. And when we give the kids space for that, we create this safe space for them to feel, and we see and we hear them. Often this allows our child to have the space to let those emotions naturally resolve. So we can embrace some thoughts, some beliefs, some mantras like crying heals. Emotions need to be felt. Emotional expression without repercussion is something we can embrace and believe in and stand for. Or one of my favorites is, in order to heal it, we must feel it. So this is switching maybe some of the things that you have been thinking about emotions, or just a default response you have to crying, and then switching it and turning it on its head and giving other ideas, other possible reasons for crying. So when we give our children space to express their emotions, when we allow them to feel the emotions in a way that lets that movement, because emotions are an electrical current. They can measure them with instruments that show these waves on them. And so emotions, like electricity, have to move. They have to find their way. And so we need to allow them to find their way if we want them to do the work that emotions, I believe, are meant to do. The reason we have them is to be felt, is to move. And when we allow them to feel, to be felt and moved, and give permission to our kids to feel them and help them know nothing's wrong with you because you're feeling these big emotions, then it allows them to shed the hurt feelings, to heal themselves. And they will end up being more emotionally mature, stronger, and confident in themselves. So holding space and listening are powerful tools that we can embrace as parents. These are tools that can transform what we've seen as a problem to be fixed, crying episode, a meltdown, a tantrum, an attitude. We've seen them as a problem to be fixed, and we want to switch them when we start to embrace this new idea that actually crying or feeling our emotions all the way through is an opportunity for them to grow. It's an opportunity for them to mature. They actually have done brain scans of children who have gone through this trip, I call it mad to sad, and they can see changes in the brain. The emotional maturity increases as we feel the emotions all the way through. And as a parent coming to the situation, it's an opportunity for closeness, healing, and growth for our relationship. Because when we can listen and see and hear our child, even when they're struggling and they know in their heart of hearts that they're being really difficult right now, really challenging, and we stay with them regardless, whether they show it to us or not, they do start to sense it. And we can start to feel so proud of ourselves for how we're able to stay with them and not have judgments about them, not compare them to our other kids or wish things were different. So when we listen, we are working with the child. We are not trying to do the work ourselves of like, how can I fix this? How can I make this go away? How can I help this be better? Instead, we're holding space and letting the emotions do the work instead of us trying to do work that's not our work to do. What I'm suggesting is that we hold space and let our child's emotions do the work of healing themselves. The emotions that are causing him so much discomfort are the ones that are actually, when felt and allowed to be expressed, resolve and heal and become a very empowering experience. What do? We stay close. We offer support. We reassure him that nothing has gone wrong with our relationship and that it's strong. And we encourage them to feel their emotions and to trust that this is part of growing up. This is part of what all humans need to have, is the experiences with big emotions. We get to be present. We get to offer this opportunity for their body to heal through feeling the emotions and them to feel more confidence coming out of this experience than feeling like, oh, something is wrong with me because I'm so angry or I'm not a hard worker. We get to get off that bandwagon. We get to listen and hold space for them to feel safe enough to take this trip from mad to sad and release the emotions inside of them. So one of my favorite sayings is we must feel to heal. And every time we take this trip from mad to sad, we grow up a little bit emotionally. Holding space for our child to feel is an approach based on the idea that crying is part of the body's way of releasing emotions and healing itself. I mean, we have them in our body for some reason. I want to believe that they're not a mistake, that they're there intentionally, that they're important for us to feel the whole gamut of emotions. When our child scratches his knee, he cries. We stay with him and he feels loved and supported, and he feels also hurt because of the scratch, and he also feels terrible all at the same time. His life is both falling apart and warm and supported as you stay by his side and give him space to cry and to feel the sting of the cut on his knee. The sad, hurt, disappointed feelings come out in the form of tears for a period of time, and then once they're released, oftentimes they take this deep breath and life gets better. They start feeling confident, calm, their thinking comes back online, and now they can learn again, and now they can love again. And letting our kids cry enables them to learn as they face and feel their emotions and challenges. It allows them to naturally recover and heal the way the body was designed to. Now, I know most of you have heard this saying, turning molehills into mountains. And I want you to keep that little phrase in your mind as I talk about this next little bit, because sometimes that is what we think our kids are doing. We think they're turning something really tiny, like not being able to find the right pen, not being able to buckle themselves in, so we buckle them, not being able to have the right bread, or a teenager getting upset about something that we're like, are you kidding? Like, why are you so frustrated about not having the $300 pairs of shoes? And so we look at them and we see, and our brain at least is interpreting what they're doing and saying they're making something really little and not very important, making a big deal out of nothing. Let's just keep that in the back of our mind, of that judgment that a lot of us have had or continue to have, or creeps up every once in a while when our kids are having an emotional outburst. Let's go back to this idea that crying comes naturally to our kids. From the time they're a baby, they cry when they're hurt or scared. So it makes sense that the baby's not doing this to be difficult or challenging, but that it's part of the body's natural recovery process, part of the way the body expresses their emotions, to feel the emotions until they are resolved. The way the body is meant to process and regulate emotions is by crying until the hurt is gone and giving it space to be felt. That's what we can do as a parent, is to hold that space. Such a beautiful gift that we can give them. The little things that get the emotions in our kids moving can trigger us unless we remember that it's probably not just those little things that are causing the big emotions. So it's not the ripped paper or the wrong bread. That might be the thing that was the catalyst in that moment, but there's probably other things that have been disappointing or frustrated or haven't worked out the way they wanted to, that they haven't fully expressed. And this little moment has given them an opportunity to release it. Because sometimes after a long cry, after emotions have really moved and come out over the broken cookie or the wrong kind of bread or getting the wrong pajamas for them at night, they might be able to say something in addition, like, I couldn't find the puppy this morning, Mom, and I thought she'd gotten hit by a car and died. That might be a sadness that came out because of something else, the broken cookie or the not bread. There could be something underlying it. Or maybe they might say something like, my friend said her parents were getting divorced and I've been worried all day that you and dad could get divorced too. Or I was watching this show where the mom died at the end and I've just been worrying all day long what would happen if you died. A lot of times the crying, when it's finished, they don't say anything like that. So don't get your hopes up or think that's expected. I'm just saying sometimes we do get a little glimpse into what maybe is further down the line of frustration or worry or upset that's going on in their brain. And it might come out after we let them have a good cry or we help them feel really safe. But a lot of times when they're finished crying, they don't say anything at all. They don't say anything why they were crying. Maybe they don't even address the little thing that happened that caused them to start crying in the first place. They might just get up and move on with their day. Now, I know it seems like the responsible thing as a parent to try to figure out what's at the root of our child's crying. We want to understand it because we think that it will help prevent it from happening again. But what if this is something we really can't prevent or that isn't even possible? It's hard to see our child in pain and hurting. I get it. It's so heart-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. And there are times when we have no understanding of what's really going on for them. But thank goodness, holding space and creating safety for them is all we really need to do. It's enough. Being by them when they're crying so that their little body can do the work of maturing and feeling those really big emotions inside of them is powerful. It is the responsible thing that we can offer them. It really is one of the only things we can offer them. It's the exact thing we can do to help them feel and develop and grow into their best self. So oftentimes, even though our brain is saying, gosh, it's just this little thing. How are you upset because your paper ripped or because your pencil broke or because you can't find the right shoes? Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt that whatever the reason is for their outburst, that it's because there is an emotion inside of them, and what we can offer them is to normalize it and to give them space to feel the emotions. I want to talk now about something that it gets even trickier for us sometimes as adults and really will test us. Let's say that you've just spent the day at the zoo with your toddler, or the afternoon with your teenager helping him fix his car, or you've gone on a shopping excursion to get something with your daughter and you've had the most fabulous, it's been beautiful, you've had good conversations, you've laughed, you've just really enjoyed your time together. And it's been just magical. And then your child spoils it. Say you're wrapping it up, you're heading home, and your child gets upset or starts being a little sassy. Maybe they cry that you won't stop for ice cream on your way home from the zoo. Or your teenager complains that you didn't let them get that one pair of shoes she tried on. And you're thinking, are you kidding me? I bought you $100 worth of clothes today. Why are you being so ungrateful? You might feel taken advantage of. You might feel like your child is rude or inconsiderate. And you might even say something like, if this is how you act after I spent the whole day with you or took you to the zoo or shopping or whatever it is, fill in the blank, then don't expect me to do that again. And whether we say it or just think it, we might feel a little resentful. This is where I want you to pause. This is where our brains tend to get a little bit away from us. We start creating stories, our own hurts come up, and if we don't catch it, we get really emotional really quick. And it's normal, part of being human, so don't judge yourself for this, but it's something I want you to start to catch yourself in. Let me explain what's really happening. Our child is doing the best they can. They are feeling after a day with us so safe and secure and connected. They've loved spending this time with you. And their body is telling them, oh, it's a good time to release some of those emotions you stuffed away yesterday or last week because that kid at school said that thing, or 2 days ago when you felt really embarrassed that you broke that bowl and you just shoved it down. Now is a good time, sweetie. Let that out. Now, the reason their body is saying this is because the day has been filled with so much happiness and so much security that it feels safe to do it. Also, there's this contrast that started happening, like so much happiness and satisfaction with you compared to the hurt or unhappiness maybe they felt when the friend said something, or they dropped the bowl, or they were so upset when somebody was rude to them at recess. So they unconsciously feel the need to address the sadness, to let it move around, to get it out. It makes sense to the brain that this would be a good chance to do it. But as parents, we don't expect it, and the timing seems terrible and makes us feel frustrated, taken advantage of, or not appreciated. However, if we can anticipate it, we can see that it happens almost like clockwork, then we can prepare ourselves for their crying or their harsh words or their criticism. We might even start giving ourselves extra time to deal with this kind of behavior, this meltdown, or reserve energy so that we're able to cope with the attitude, I'm doing air quotes right now, but we want to be able to have the ability to cope with this. So we want to create space for those emotions to come out and for us to be prepared when they do and not be thrown totally by surprise. We want to preserve the connection, and we can do that when we can anticipate it's happening and have a good reason for our brain to explain, oh, this is fine that they're doing this. I get it, and not be upset at them. Now, I want to talk about some suggestions for holding this space and for listening to them. One of them is to create safety. Make sure everyone is safe. Say one of the kids having a huge meltdown and is starting to hit the other children or say things that are just not okay for you. We want to really have this clear line where emotions are okay, but not all behavior is okay. All emotions are okay, but not all behavior is okay. But if there is a situation where it feels like there's safety at risk, we want to make sure everyone's safe. We want to remove anything or anyone that might create real danger. For example, maybe holding a sibling who's trying to hurt or punch another child, or if they've knocked something over, like a chair has fallen onto some child's foot or leg, we want to lift that up and make sure they're physically okay, or fix anything that's pinching or hurting a child physically. So for sure, we want to step right in, even if we're feeling totally triggered, and make sure everyone feels safe and realize that's our number one. That's our number one thing, first and foremost. An important thing to remember is that we don't want to interrupt the process without advice. So like I said, we're first making sure everyone's safe. Once that safety thing has been satisfied, let's say your child's upset and looking for support and compassion and understanding right now. They're upset. They might not know they're looking for support and compassion, but you know that's really what they're saying. They're saying, hey, I am out of control. I can't regulate myself. I don't know what to do over here. Help. As they're sending out smoke signals saying, I'm in distress over here. So we can see the outburst as a distress signal, and they need our support because they're not regulating their emotions. They really need us to create that bubble of safety for them to navigate this because they're not doing it themselves. Then we're going to intervene differently. It's not time, though, to give advice about how they shouldn't have climbed on the couch or yelled or ran on the wet concrete or thrown the toy. Possibly, if your brain's like my brain, you're going to give them a little lecture, but I really encourage you to hold back because crying causes our brains to block out most of our world and just focus on the pain and you being there as a parent. They can feel your presence and they can feel their pain. This is something that the body does to help with healing. It needs to fully focus on this to feel the emotions. He needs to focus, or she needs to focus on feeling the emotions to heal first. So when we start saying things, we're distracting them with lectures or advice or our opinion about something. It interrupts this process. We want his brain to be able to focus on the feeling. His thinking brain is off anyway, so he can't fully hear what you're saying. So all it really does when we're saying that is just pour more frustration on the frustration or more hurt on the hurt. So let's give them space to cry. Don't judge or try to hurry up the process. Once he's fully cried and is feeling safe again, if you feel the need to teach something or you do need to give some words of wisdom, then wait till you're both calm, and then he'll be much more open to it and you'll be in a better place to give it. At this point, neither of you will be triggered. He'll have cleared all the confusion. His thinking brain will be back on, and you'll both be ready to give and receive instructions so that things can possibly go differently next time. However, in the heat of the moment, remember your main goal is to let their emotions do their work. Another really important tip I would have as we're trying to learn how to hold this space for our children is to move in close. I call it seeing your child, which means that we look at them in the eyes and we try to see if they'll respond to us with a smile or a nod. So looking kindly into their eyes, you can possibly gently touch them, but really be respectful. Some kids really don't like to be touched when they're highly emotionally charged. So you're going to have to play that out, but that can possibly be a powerful way to show them that you're there supporting them. Sometimes they're open to us maybe speaking words that are accepting of what's happening, and some kids really don't want that. But just start to do this dance, so to speak, of just figuring out and it might be a different dance each time they have an emotional expression. Know these different techniques and see what happens, and don't take offense if they don't want you to touch them, or if they don't want you to talk to them, or if they won't even look at you in the eye right now. That's just information telling you where they're at and what they prefer. But regardless of what they do, stay close and reassure them, even if you're saying it in your own head, because the way you're showing up, if you're believing in them, even if they don't want you to speak it, it's going to change the way you're energetically, emotionally showing up for them. So reassuring him either verbally or just in your head that you're there to support him. If you need to remove a child from a room, Don't yank them out because you're upset. If at all possible, try to retrain ourselves to realize I need to move them because it's going to serve them best, and try to do it with so much compassion and so much empathy. And if you're having trouble mustering that up, think of a time where you were so upset that nobody can console you. That is where they're at. Don't let our child, though, stay hidden in a corner for too long. Sometimes they'll just bury into themselves. As much as you can, you want them to have space, but you also want to gently let them know that you're there and that you'd love to see how they're doing. And like I said, they might not be willing to look at you, or your child may look at you and start to cry even harder. Don't worry if they do that. Nothing has gone wrong. He just needs more time to focus on feeling his emotions. His work of feeling his emotions isn't done yet. Give him time and space to keep feeling those emotions, and eventually, I promise, if they feel safe and secure and they're able to fully feel them, they're going to relax and fully connect back with you again. When our children are full of emotions, they are focused on how they are feeling. Anything we do during this time to reassure our child that we are there to support will be powerful, even if they don't acknowledge it. This might look like a gentle touch, a soft word, eye contact. Maybe it's sitting nearby, or just thinking, loving, open, accepting thoughts about them. They may or may not respond to your connection while they're crying, possibly won't, but you'll often notice warmth and openness to you once he calms down and has finished processing his emotions. I like to also remind myself to ask but don't insist. So when our kids cry, like I've said, they often have a good reason, whether they're aware of it or not aware of it. And the more intense the emotion is, the harder it might be for them to understand it or even talk about it. They might not even be aware of what's at the root of what they're feeling. So we can let them know we're interested in knowing what's causing them to be upset. We might say something about that, but we just don't want them to think that we expect them to respond. Just let them know you care, and if they want to share what's going on for them, you're there to listen and help. A couple of years ago, one of my girls was suddenly really upset right before school, and it went on for a week. And I would take her to school, and then she would sit in the car for 30 minutes because we got there were other kids that were going in the carpool. All the other kids would go in, and then she would say, "Can you stay with me?" And we would sit in the car, and she would cry and have so many angry emotions and mad emotions and overwhelmed emotions. It would all come up, and then the bell would ring, and she'd take a deep breath, and she'd hug me, and she'd say, "Okay, I gotta go." And I asked her in the afternoon what was bothering her, and for a few afternoons, she'd either not say anything or she'd burst into tears again. Finally, a week or so of this going on, one morning she finally said, "Mom, I just don't have any friends." She explained some of the things that had happened. There's really nothing I could do to make it go away. All I could do was hold space for her and give her this compassion, empathy, and support. And that's all she said that morning. And then a few days later, she seemed really sad again, and she came up and shared that it wasn't just at school she didn't have friends, but her sister had so many friends, but she didn't have any friends at home either. And she cried and talked about it, and the emotions came through. And then a few days later, after crying, she said, "Mom, it's not even just at school or at home. My cousins don't even like me. And you know what, Mom? I don't blame them because sometimes I'm so mean and I'm just so sad about this." And this was a slow process of her slowly working through this. And she kept feeling sadness and grief and anger and upset and jealousy. And it kept coming up over and over. And I kept holding space for her brain to get a little bit more grown up each time she experienced it. It was like crying, followed by some talking periodically, and then a little bit of understanding. And the emotions just kept doing their work. Even though we can ask them, "Hey, do you want to talk about what's going on?" Don't expect them to share, and don't expect it to happen in any logical way. It'll come if they're ready, if they become aware of it, and when they feel like they're ready to share that. And that might not ever happen. There might be other kids that we just hold the space and they have those emotions, and we don't ever really get to the understanding of it, and that's okay too, because it's resolving. It's resolving in their body, and if they need to share, they will. If we show up really accepting that this emotional journey they're going on is not a problem, it's totally fine. Another thing that is really important is that we want to focus on the next point of connection. Our children really want to feel connected to us. So when they're little, it can be us leaving for the grocery store might feel like too much for them to bear. So they might really have a lot of disconnection and cry and be really upset that we're leaving, and that's okay. That's normal. They want the connection with us, and they're feeling a little bit of a tug and a separation. So we might say something like, "Don't worry, I'll be back in no time, and when I get back, we'll play Legos together." So we want to talk about the next time we're going to do something together. And this is going to reassure them that the connection is strong by putting the emphasis, the focus, the attention, the energy on the next connection instead of the separation. Instead of, hey, okay, you don't need to be upset. It's fine. To say it's totally understandable that you're upset, and I can't wait till we do this thing together. When they're older, they know we're coming back from the grocery store, but they might wonder if what they said last night or what they did last night created a disconnection in the relationship that maybe caused something that would be difficult to heal. Focusing on and creating a moment of connection to help them know, oh, everything's good. I can tell she wants to hang out with me. It lets them know we still want to spend time with them. And so we want to use this time, though, to be with them, and don't try to teach or train or distill any wisdom of yours. Just be present with them and have fun. All right, another important thing as we're trying to create this space, trying to listen, is to believe whatever they're feeling. And this can be tricky. When I was going to nursing school, my instructor once said, if a patient says their pain is an 8 out of 10 on the pain scale, so 10 is the worst, like having a baby or breaking a major bone in your body, 8 out of 10 is pretty significant. She said, don't question them even if you think, there's no way that's an 8. You have a scratch or you have a little bit of a rash or something. Never question the patient. The patient is always right. This is their reality. And this same wisdom completely applies to how our kids are feeling. They are seeing the world through their eyes based on their experience. And we're used to seeing it from our point of view and our life experience. A sandwich cut the wrong way or a treat not given before dinner, even though that seems super trivial to us, our children don't see it that way. So telling your child to feel happy when they're sad or to calm down when they're upset is like telling your flat tire on your car to fix itself and fill itself back up. It's impossible and ridiculous. So if we can honor that sometimes there are things that have happened to our children that are really disappointing or really frustrating or really upsetting, even though we can see from our point of view that it's not a big deal or it's going to be okay, honor where they are, allow and accept the situation that's being presented in front of us, what they're saying, instead of judging it, resisting it, or try to fix it. Remember, nothing is broken. This is the way our child grows up, is to have their perception of the world, to feel these big emotions, happy and sad, the whole gamut, and to allow their brain to realize, hey, I just was so disappointed and devastated and embarrassed or whatever the emotion is, and I didn't die. I was okay. I survived. That is how we become resilient. That is how our brains learn to regulate the emotions. That is how we grow up to be emotionally mature. But it has to start by them taking that trip, of them experiencing the emotions. So saying or thinking something like, I'm so sorry you're so sad, or I'm not going anywhere, I'm here for you, or it's totally okay to be upset, gives your child reassurance that you trust them and know that they are going to work through these feelings, that it's going to be okay. Now, phrases like, this isn't something you need to be upset about, or it's only a broken cookie, or this really isn't that big of a deal. Why are you so sad about this? I cut your sandwich in a triangle instead of a rectangle. It's not the end of the world. What it often is doing is it's shaming them or dismissing their emotions. So saying things like this go against what you're really trying to provide for your child, which is a sense of safety, security, and love and well-being. Just because you aren't able to fix the emotions, or you're not thinking you need to fix the emotion, doesn't mean you're condoning them or spoiling them or enabling them. Just because we give them the space to feel them and to have the tantrum, we're actually helping them and supporting them. You are his or her guide to take the trip from mad to sad. Our children cry when they are too upset to think. Emotions of upset, frustration, and disappointment can overpower them and can drive them to do things that logically don't make any sense. That's because the emotions have taken over and the logical brain is totally off. So often when our children cry and they say things about us or other people who they deeply care about, they might say mean things like, Mom, I hate you, or you don't love me, or I wish you weren't my mom, or I don't want to see you again, or you're the worst. And this is normal talk when our child's upset. They need freedom to express themselves without repercussions while they're upset. Remember, their logical brain is offline. They're filled and flooded with emotions. Once I heard somebody say, our kids need freedom of mouth when they're upset. So if we can give them space to cry and let it out, to say the terrible things, to be bitter and rude, resentful, angry, fearful, upset, and to allow that to move and come out, as they are saying or doing these things that might seem unkind, and we can reassure them, oh, no matter what you say about me or how you feel about me, I will always love you. This is powerful when we aren't offended and when we don't take it personally. It's not really what they think. It's just the way of them flushing out their foul frustrations. This is the way they learn to regulate their emotions, is by becoming unregulated and then learning how to scale it back. This is how they get back in touch with themselves. When our child has gotten to express their emotions in a safe place and to feel our belief and trust in them no matter what, we get to practice seeing past the behavior, and they get to express their emotions. We get to see past those behaviors and emotions, and we get to look into their heart and soul and know that these emotions are not them. These words are not them. These actions are not them. They are just passing through. There is just something going on that's not working for them. This is the best they can do because of other things going on. It's not who they are. He or she are none of these things. I also want to say that we need to give our children lots of space, lots of time. And this is really challenging for our brains because it's tricky to do this dance. So let's talk about it. So once our child cries or gets upset, the first thing he'll be releasing emotions about is a thing that triggered him. But now that he started to cry or get sad, other things might come up. He might not even realize it. And most likely he's not going to tell us that now he's not crying about the sandwich being cut the wrong way, but he's crying about his bike being broken or his friend saying something mean to him. He's not crying about the cookie. He's crying about something else. Even though this might be happening, they may or may not tell us about it. And if we can hold space for them, then they're going to be able to just let this cascade, this movement of emotions come out. If holding space is something new for you and you haven't looked at crying as a process of healing before, you haven't trusted the process of crying before, then the first time the child opens up, it could last for a long time. It could last for an hour or more. And it's possible he has a lot of frustrations inside of him that once you create this beautiful space will come out. The more compassion and empathy and warmth we bring, the more intense his crying may become, which our brains are going to say, this isn't working, but it's because he feels so supported that his body is going to drop the defenses and he's going to want to release as much as possible in this moment. Think of times when you've gotten emotional when someone just has been extraordinarily kind to you or has looked at you in the eyes and you can feel their sense of love for you. Like this for our child. As we create a safer and safer place for them, his emotions will see this as a chance to move and express. And at the end of the cry, he will possibly feel very tired and also very relieved. Whenever I tell this to moms, they often say, wait, I can't do that. Who's going to take care of the other kids, make dinner, keep the house running if I spend an hour holding space for my child to cry? And I totally get it. Time is a hot commodity as a parent. And it's going to take time to create this space for your child. But oftentimes, the process of scolding and correcting, negotiating, pleading, bribing, giving ultimatums, honestly, if we counted all those minutes, it takes just as much time, if not more, and is emotionally draining. It's good to look at that and say, oh, but actually I spend hours a day trying to teach and train and manipulate and plead and bargain and negotiate, and that's exhausting. We're just more comfortable and more practiced at handling it that way and spending our time trying to change the child. So we're going to have to deal with the child one way or another. And when we hold space, listen, and allow them to emotionally express, we're getting at the root of what's going on. We're letting the child do the work of healing themselves. We are allowing him to cry his heart out, knowing that this is how you turn mad into sad and sad into relaxing, guiding him through the process and letting him guide himself back to himself. Now, I just want to say oftentimes at the end of a good cry, the child's going to be exhausted and fall asleep. That's okay. Sleep might also serve, though, as an intermission to the dance from mad to sad. So we might cry and be upset and then get so exhausted that it sleeps for a while. And then as soon as he wakes up, cry and get upset some more. Either way, stay connected and trust that when the cry and the emotional release is over, you are likely to see a positive change in behavior and mood. Just give him space. It takes time. This is hard work to release emotions that have been inside of us for a while. A couple last final thoughts is to acknowledge when you see that things are turning around. After a good emotional expression, if you're looking for it, you might spot some really beautiful shifts in their behavior. Maybe they'll look at you in the eyes or tenderly touch your face or give you a hug or write you a note or start playing with other children, or your teenager might actually sit by you or want to talk to you or be willing to eat with you. They might start working on homework or maybe go pick up their room. I want you to be on the lookout for little signs that are showing you that your child's coming back to who they really are. You want to be looking for them or you're not going to find them. You'll miss them. And I also just want to say that holding space and listening to our child is simple, yet very challenging. To be fully present to be not judgmental, to be compassionate, empathetic, while they're screaming and yelling and saying unkind things is no easy task. Our child's behavior and emotional triggers will often trigger our own emotions. And this is why it's so important that we're taking care of ourselves as well. That we find someone who can listen to us without judging or correcting us. That we can learn to slow down and listen to our own stories so that we can let go of our judgment and comparison, so that we can get to the root of our own stories and unravel and heal them so that we can come with more compassion, empathy, and belief in ourselves and in our children.
We'll talk to you guys all soon. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.